Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. Hope you're having a great day. This is a painting that I did in a live stream. It took 2 hours, but this video is the compressed version that takes like 2 hours and squashes it into 15 minutes. So let's just get straight into it. Here we are in Corel Painter again, and I've gone straight in with my oily water brush, and this is a look I've made myself. I have to say that unfortunately this, as you know, is a live stream, or was a live stream, and the app crashed within 5 minutes because I got such a large brush, I guess. And I do feel that compared to Art Rage, when I'm using Corel Painter, I feel like I'm battling against the app all the time. Here I screwed up a little bit. I was because I hadn't used the app for a few couple of weeks. I'd forgotten how to use the transform tool, and so and I was drawing on the wrong layer because the app crashed during the live stream. The app crashed, and I had to reboot it, which was all a little bit stressful, and it freaked me out a bit, man. And I was sort of drawing this sketch that you see now on the layer below it, and I wanted it on its own layer, so that messed up a bit. Anyway, as I was saying, using Corel Painter, I feel like all the while I'm battling against the app and not just painting. And what I mean by that is, you click on a brush, and a little timer comes up and spins around, and you have to wait while the brush is initialized or something. But you can't just click on the brush and go with it. And when I was resizing the brush, once you've resized it, you have to take the stylus off this screen and just wait a couple of seconds while it thinks about it. Otherwise, you end up with a tiny little brush. And it was quirky little things like that I found really, really annoying. And it's not that I've not got a particularly slow machine. It's fairly recent. It's a couple of years old, but I've got an NVIDIA graphics card. I've got 16 gig of RAM, and it was built as a gaming machine. So it's a reasonable machine, and no other app gives me the problems that makes me feel as though it's sort of really struggling than like Corel Painter does. And especially when it crashed, that sort of during a live stream was a little bit upsetting, to say the least. So what I've done, anyway, I've created a layer. I've got that oily wash on, and then I used this speckle grainy odd drip brush. I found was a nice brush that I can use to start blocking in colour. And the reason I did this sketch, usually when I'm doing an oil painting, I just wade in and start painting. But I felt there was so much architectural detail on this, I just needed a little bit of sketch to make sure that I get things in the right place. So that's why I did that. But once I'd done that, this brush I found really, really cool to use to block in the colour. And what is really nice about it, I mean, I used it to do the sketch as well. So a very versatile brush, and you can see it, I'm sort of changing the colour as I'm going, and I'm just using the Alt key to select the colour off of the canvas. So it really does speed up your painting dramatically, because you're not sort of going to the colour palette all the time, just picking the colours off the canvas. And I did find that really nice. So the idea of this painting was that I got to finish it in 2 hours, because that's how long I wanted the live stream to be. So it's not going to be a mega detailed thing, and it was going to be a kind of a loose impressionist style, and I wanted it to be in thick paint. And the reason for that is I wanted to compare the thick paint in Art Rage to the thick painting Corel Painter. So that brings me to the question, should I do a comparison with Corel Painter and Art Rage, comparing the two types of thick paint and maybe do the same painting in with both apps, because there's a huge price difference between Corel Painter and ArtRage, and I've been getting some really cool paintings, I think, using ArtRage, but there's a lot of effects in Corel Painter that you can't do in ArtRage. But do you need them? Do you need those effects? Can you get something equally as good in ArtRage? So if you can put in the comments if you'd like to see that, and if enough people say yeah they would, I'll consider doing a comparison video of the two. But here you can see straight away I've got an effect there that I've not seen in ArtRage, where I've got that sort of speckled paint on the roof, sort of the light catching the roof. So I used for the thick paint, by the way, I used a grainy thick and wet brush, but I made two different versions of it. One for that sort of scumbled look where the paint sort of just scraped over the canvas. Another one which is a little bit more paint on the brush, and then the default brush. So I'd got three versions of the same brush that I used for this painting, and I used pretty much them extensively, apart from one palette knife, and I can't remember what that was, but I did use a palette knife to scrape into the paint. I was getting some quite cool effects with that. So I wanted to keep this minimalist, and I wanted to put sort of big thick vertical strokes in, which I struggled with at times. I found myself fiddling about a bit, but there you can see I've got that palette knife now, and you can just sort of scrape into it, and I thought that was really cool for the windows and things, and sort of putting in a little bit of detail just by scraping through the paint. And I just love that sort of really dry brush. I thought that was really cool. I had a look to see if I could find a tube of paint. I didn't see a tube of paint in Corel Painter, but to be honest, I didn't have a massive amount of time, so I didn't spend a lot of time looking. I just looked in the thick paint and I couldn't see anything. But then again, you know, I am a bloke and I never look properly, so it could well be there. I probably ought to have another look, because I'd like to be able to try using tubes of paint and a palette knife the same as you can in ArtRage, because I think that's a really cool method of painting. But it did sort of freak me out a bit when it crashed. You don't expect that, you know, when you're sort of paying for the most expensive painting app there is on the market, you're kind of not expecting it to just sort of crash. And that was sort of minutes into the painting, just because I'd you know, the brush was too big, I guess, because it just hung up. And I suppose, no, I don't think it would have, I was going to say it might have resolved itself if I'd have waited, but I don't think it would. But it's still pretty effective. Look at that thick paint going on there. Really is nice. In the photo, I actually played around with the photo to get that chair and the walking sticks into the composition. And the original photo, it was much lower and you could see all of the road. So I sort of doctored the photo a bit and used another photo to put the people in it, not the guy on the motorbike, but the other two, just so I'd got some action going on. I really enjoyed doing this. I'm really enjoying the live streams because it sort of makes me focus a lot. I have to think about something that I can paint in a fairly short time, in 2 hours, which isn't long. I can often spend, you know, more time than that on a painting. and I want to try and get it finished. I think so far I've only done one where I've had to work on it after the 2 hours. So, and it's nice, you know, because people come in and chat and everything. So it's fun to do. It's a real fun thing to do, and it sort of makes me focus quite a lot. Although I am talking all the way through the live stream, so that's sort of a bit weird, talking while I'm painting. I'm not used to that. I just love the way the thick paint sort of adds form to a shape. It sort of makes those walking sticks stand off the canvas because the paint's so thick. And now I've discovered these or created this look where I can get this sort of really dry brush effect. That's added another dimension to it as well, which I really like. What I did here, I created a new layer. I changed the blend mode to multiply just so I could paint in these shadows and sort of give a little bit more depth to the buildings and a bit more form. I think I felt I overdid it, so I knocked the opacity back a little bit. There you go. Just sort of knock that back. But now the sort of buildings have definitely got more shape. And then I go in with some nearly white, not completely white, and just add some highlights and just a few touches there. And I think that sort of gives it a bit of a sparkle as well. I felt that the yellow lines were just way too yellow that I'd got in. I wanted to knock them back a bit. And also, see, I'm using that palette knife. This just scrapes into that paint there. I wanted to make sure that the buildings kind of blended into the pavement. There wasn't a sharp edge that defined the pavement and the buildings. I wanted them to sort of merge into one another. So look at that thick paint. I mean, it does look impressive, doesn't it? I have to say, once I'd got past my initial freak out with the crashing, I really got into it, and I really did enjoy doing this. It was a lot of fun. So sort of jumping all over the place with this one. What is nice about it, it looked like a finished painting all the way through. I sort of and ahed about putting the biker in as well. I noticed there that I needed to put a little bit more road in. To the middle right of the picture, it's made those distant buildings look right, and actually in the distance just whacked a little bit of trees in there. So then I did decide to put the cyclist in, and the first attempt I felt he was actually on this pavement running down pedestrians, so I started again and reworked him. And then I thought to myself, why am I painting this tiny little cyclist when I can actually zoom in a bit if I want to actually see what I'm doing? And you can see I'm not going crazy with details, just sort of trying to get that little marks in that make you feel as though it is a cyclist. And then I felt that the dark on the cyclist the dark colour needed to be added to those pedestrians as well, making sure I get the shadows in, all going in the right direction. You don't want to make the mistake of having some shadows going to the left and some to the right. Nothing looks worse. I'm just sort of putting in a few more details. The cyclist certainly helped break up the buildings and the roadside, which I was really pleased with. And then I decided I wanted the legs to look a little bit more dynamic on one of the people. And then a few more highlights and scraped in colour onto these walking sticks just to add the finishing touches. And There we go, get it signed. And I was really pleased with this painting. I really enjoyed doing it. It only took 2 hours, but it was a lot of fun. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you have, a big thumbs up, as always, much appreciated, helps me out a lot. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and dinging that bell, because I've got lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.